I still clearly remember the first time I saw Matthew Stafford throw a football. It was late January 2006 on the practice fields at Georgia, the Woodruff practice fields. And I'd covered the NFL a little bit with the Falcons a couple of years prior to that. And so I got to see someone with a very live arm live and in person, which was Michael Vick, who could really, really throw a football. Matthew Stafford was even more eye-opening than that. And there's been very few people since that moment that I've seen that can throw it like Matthew. And finally now, almost 16 years or so after I first saw him throw it, Matthew will get a chance to really make a splash in the NFL. He's not had that chance. Got drafted number one overall by the Detroit Lions. I talked with him about that one-on-one before he got drafted, and he was excited. I remember that very clearly, sitting there talking to him before he was leaving to go get ready for the final part of the lead up to the draft. But I've watched over time, and Matthew's given a lot to Detroit. He's given a lot of blood, sweat, and tears for sure, and he's gotten paid handsomely for sure. But it's time for him to get a real crack at winning the Super Bowl. Dean Legge from Dog Post, making you a smarter Georgia fan. Matthew Stafford was a guy that we called Fat Matt, and not FAT Fat Matt. And that was the joke amongst people who were covering him at the time, was he'd come to Georgia overweight. And it didn't take long, though, about 6 months, and he was where he needed to be. He had shaven his head, which was a common thing at the time at Georgia for freshmen, and put in right away when Joe Tereshinski got hurt against South Carolina. Didn't play well that whole freshman year until the last few games. His really blossoming into himself coming into the 2007 season. So a couple of things were happening at the same time there, which is that Mark Richt had given up play calling control to Mike Bobo. Neil Callaway had left to go be, I think, the head coach at UAB, and so it was up to Bobo to call plays from the Georgia Tech game on. And he'd already been calling 2-minute plays, and here comes Mike Bobo with his guy, which was Matthew Stafford. So Georgia's down to Georgia Tech late 2006. This was a good Georgia Tech team, and the Jackets were up. And so Bobo gets on the phone to Matthew and says, hey, you're just going to have to do it, okay? You're just going to have to go down the field and score a touchdown and win the game. And that is exactly what they did. It was a relatively long drive, and from that moment forward, really the Auburn game 2, which was 2 weeks before that or so, they had shocked Auburn, number 5 Auburn, which was not so far from playing for a national championship. And Matthew and company go down there and win like 37-13 or whatever it was. It was a total blowout. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it when I was on the field for that game. And the whole time, they go down to Jacksonville, play Florida tough, lose on a relatively controversial call at the end of the game, 21-14. But it was in Lexington where Matthew against Kentucky had to grow up. I mean, after that game, everything for him was, hey, look, this kid's either going to do it or he's not. And it's time for him to start playing better. So after that, 4 turnover performance, they come and they shock Auburn. Then they, stun, I think it was Tech and then Virginia Tech in the bowl game. Matthew didn't play well against Virginia Tech necessarily either, but from 2007 on, it was clear. It was clear that Matthew was going to be the number 1 overall draft pick. There just was really no one in his ballpark. Mark Sanchez, I guess. But here we are, all these years later, and when you think about Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson, Matthew Stafford, I can't think of many franchises in the NFL, and there's plenty of bad ones. I can't think of anybody in the NFL who has been as lethargic as the Lions have been over the last 50 years. And lethargic's a nice way of putting it, that they're just bad. And so for Matthew coming forward here, he's got a contract that really gives him the ability to be in a good shape with a team. So it's my understanding is it's a 2-year contract that's remaining, and it's favorable to the team. He's only now going to turn 33, which means he's going to have probably the end of this contract and one more big one, and that will be Matthew's time in the NFL. How much longer he will play, I don't know, but probably one more pretty large chunk of change for Matthew. This is not about money. I mean, Matthew doesn't need any more money, okay? This is about Super Bowl wins. And again, going back to now 2009 when he and I were talking, and this was on the record, so I don't feel like I'm betraying anything that he said. He said, the biggest thing that I'm worried about, if it's just one thing, are Super Bowls. He wants Super Bowl wins. Well, they played in the playoff 3 times in Detroit. It's not getting better. I've wanted Matthew to be able to leave Detroit for a while. The question is, where can he go that he can relatively quickly get an opportunity at the Super Bowl? Those chances are not everywhere. I mean, even if he were to go to the Steelers or something like that, there's not a great situation at Pittsburgh immediately. No matter who you are, you've got to get past the Chiefs, which is extremely difficult to do. How much longer Tom Brady will matter, I don't know, but you got to get past him as well. So the 2 guys that are playing in the Super Bowl in 2021 are the 2 guys that have most recently won the Super Bowl. So a lot of this is about the quarterback. But in Detroit, he has very rarely been surrounded by guys who really are just killers. It's been, the offensive lines have been bad to mediocre. And, I have wanted more for him than he's gotten. He's extremely loyal. You can see that from his time at Georgia, not just at Georgia, but certainly in Detroit. But he doesn't owe anybody anything else now. He owes himself the chance to go win a Super Bowl, and that's what I hope he does, because the kid is he's not a kid. He's a father of multiple children here. He deserves his own chance. He's worked for it. I don't say deserves a lot. But he needs to make the right call here. That's the tricky part, is finding the right place. I guess the Falcons, in theory, could be interested in him as well. I would steer clear from the Falcons if I were him. I wouldn't want any part of that. I would want to figure out, where could I go where it could immediately work, Dallas. But you got to deal with Dak Prescott, who never signed the contract. I mean, the NFL can be a real mess for these quarterbacks. But someone as established as Matthew is, someone as good as Matthew is, someone who you don't hear a lot of chirping about in the media, someone like that, that's going to be a guy that's going to be of high value to, blue blood franchises like the Patriots, like, the Cowboys, who I hesitate to put in blue blood, but they certainly are very valued, and it's his home. So, those 2 spots, maybe Pittsburgh, but, you look around the league and people are chewing up quarterbacks like crazy. If you don't make it work immediately, it doesn't matter what pick you were, you're gone. So, New England seems like a logical place, but now with Aaron Rodgers kind of getting a little jumpy in Green Bay, so there's not a lot of places, but Matthew he needs to do something for himself. He needs to be selfish and figure out, where's the best place that I can win right away? New Orleans. So there's places. He would be frightening playing for the New Orleans Saints. Now all you Falcons fans can shiver in your nightmares on that deal. Dean Legge from Dog Post, making you a smarter Georgia fan. Make sure to check out this playlist up here. We update them all the time. And thanks for watching. We'll see you on the website.